Okay, so you're at the customer's house. You've clicked the appointment type for the reason you're there. This specific example is the questionnaire and the inspection sheet built around radon protection. So the very first appointment type that you can select in our software. If I click that, it's going to bring me right to the questionnaire. This is important because we want to ask the customer questions to understand exactly why we're in their house and what their goals are for fixing their home. There are many ways that we could do things. We want to listen to them to make sure that we're addressing their lead need or, their accomplished list throughout the way. So this first section here is based around asking questions, looking at your tablet with the software, and filling in the blanks, right? So this isn't something where you have to present anything, you have to convince anything or anyone. You don't have to sell anything at this point. You're a consultant, you're at the house to help, but to do that, you need to answer these questions, get answers to these questions first. So the first section here is, what is your radon level? So you could either pick picocuries per liter for our folks in America, or you could pick becquerels for our Canadian dealers as well. For sake of this, we'll do 6 picocuries per liter. And the customer had tested that, and we're at their house, and that's what they want to address. Now, the radon level does matter, right? So the way we do our design protocols is, of course, we have chambers and we have ways to fix home and design systems based on the home structure, but we also have systems in place or protocols in place on fixing homes based on the radon level as well. So we'll get into more of that later, and we can share our design protocols with you in the network. But the higher the level may affect what kind of solutions you offer that homeowner, or if we're doing combination of multiple types of systems. So keep that in mind, but it is important to get. Then we want to find out how they tested their home, and we're going to ask pointed questions or follow-up questions around, where did you set up the test? Did you read the instructions? Did you send it off in time? Oftentimes we see people put up a test in like a furnace room with an open sump pit, and they set it on the floor, and that, of course, would make your levels rather high. So we want to make sure that they're doing it correctly. We want to help people the right way. So if that was the case, then we would offer to retest their home for them to make sure it's done correctly. But it doesn't mean that you have to stop there and not provide a proposal either. It's just another opportunity in front of you. So we want to ask those questions, but the main question we need is the third one. Why do you want to fix your home? Everything we do as a company should revolve around what the customer's reasons for fixing the home are, right? So we have our missions, right? We want to help our communities from lung cancer, but customers all have different reasons. And this is our chance to just ask the question and listen. And so it's an opportunity to show them that we care, and show them that we're empathetic, and that we hear them, okay? So whatever the reason may be, just type that in on your tablet. While you're asking these questions, you'll be filling out the blanks here. And really, for an example today, my daughter sleeps in the basement. That could be what the homeowner tells me, and I'm going to want to write down their words exactly for what they say the reason is on why you're there, why they want to fix it now, right? So that's going to tell you their deep concern, and hopefully you can just type that there, and you can refer back to that later in the appointment to remind them of what their customer why is. Very important. When would you like to have the work done? You're going to hear a variety of answers on this. You're going to hear, I don't know. Perhaps you're going to hear next week. Maybe you'll hear not a priority. Whatever the reason is, use their words again, type it in here, parrot back to them what you're hearing to show that you're listening. But it's going to tell you a story, right? Like how important is this, and what's the urgency behind the project? So follow-up questions are crucial to the survey. You can go through this survey and just ask all the questions directly how they are and then move on. But helpful follow-up questions will really set you up for success later in the presentation when you're asking for the business. Okay. When was the house built? So you can put in the year for the house being built. And that'll tell you a story on the structure of the home, of course. How long have you lived here? This is going to tell you something other than just obviously how long have they lived here, but it's going to tell you, like, you know, how long they've had this problem. So later in the appointment, you could reference that. If they've been in a house since 2012, the levels are at 6 and they're just now addressing it, we all know that radon is not a short-term problem. It's a long-term problem. So you could be in a house for 40 years and have levels of 4, and that could be the same as living in a house for 20 years and having levels of 8, right? It's all about the levels and the exposure to those radon levels. So it helps tell you the story and piece that puzzle together. Any construction additions or changes to the property, this is important. Sometimes when we do our inspections, surprise, we can miss some things, right? So what this does is it allows the customer to be involved, tell you what they've done to their home. Maybe they're prideful of what they did. They want to show off something about their home. But it also allows you to know how many chambers are in the home, right? And so the follow-up question that I would have here is any construction additions or changes to the property. And if they say no, then I'm still going to ask the follow-up question, do you have any dirt crawl spaces that I need to know about? And that's going to tell you if you have some encapsulation work ahead of you, and it's also going to help you design a system to address both the dirt crawl space and the basement portion or the slab on grade portion. So important to ask that question every time. So we'll just say no changes, and we do have a dirt crawl space. The next question here is really about your opportunity to offer additional solutions that not only help with radon in some cases, but protect them and improve their overall indoor air quality, right? So the question is simply word for word like this. Does anyone in the house suffer from allergies or asthma? Stop, listen to their answer. Maybe they say yes, maybe they say their daughter, maybe they say my wife, but it's just seasonal. Doesn't matter what it is, write it down in this section here. And then another follow-up question would be, are there any musty odors that you've noticed? And what that does is it kind of leads you into conversations later around Breathe Easy filtration, the Aspen, Sani-Dry Sedonas for humidity control. There's a lot of things that you can get out of this one simple question. So be sure to listen, stop, pause, don't talk too much. Find out what the customer's concerns are, and then write that in here. So you could just say yes, as an example here. Seasonal allergies. Have you had any other professional advice? A lot of times in the network when I'm on ride-alongs, I see that people tend to skip over this question. I'm not sure why, right? So the whole purpose of being there is you want to help that customer. And it is okay if they have other professional advice. In fact, I like walking into a house when they've already had 2 or 3 bids because I know exactly what I'm up against, right? Being the first one there and say you're a little bit more expensive than competition, there's a different way to look at it, right? So asking this question just gives you more ammunition to help you later on in the appointment. So have you had other professional advice? You're going to hear answers like, yep, you're my 3rd one, or nope, you're my 1st one, but I do expect to get bids. Now, what's that tell you, right? It tells you exactly where they're at in the bidding process. And later, when you're closing or asking for options that they can choose from, you're going to reference this again. So all of these are going to be very important to help yourself later, okay? When selecting a company to fix your home, what is important to you? Here's your opportunity to find out what matters to the customer. Some customers will say, I don't have anything, just budget, cheap as possible system. Great. I'm going to write down budget, cheap as possible. I'm not going to try to convince them of anything different here. I'm not going to try to tell them what I think at this point in time. I want to listen to them and see what's important to them. You might hear someone say, you know what? I don't want the cheapest bid. I want the best quality and the best service. Well, write that down in this section. You could put down best quality, best service, and then that'll be a great reminder for you later. Is there anyone else that is part of this decision? So obviously the answer to this will help you understand what challenges or obstacles or objections you have about the decision maker, right? So say you're at a house and you're with a husband, and he says, yeah, my wife wanted me to call, okay? Well, if the wife isn't there, by asking this question, is there anyone else part of this decision? That husband may tell me, yeah, my wife, but she's not here. It allows me an opportunity to maybe ask if the wife needs to be there, reschedule the appointment. That way I have both decision makers there. Maybe it allows me the opportunity, if we need to later, what if we called your wife if we have any questions? Would that be okay? It just allows you a way in to make sure that everyone in the situation that's part of the decision is comfortable knowing the education, knowing how we're going to fix their home, and of course, knowing what the price is. So this really helps you at the end of the appointment. So, dreaded, I need to think about it or talk about it with my wife comment. Do they think fixing it is important? This is an important question. You find out the seriousness of the problem and if you have another obstacle to overcome or not. So be sure to ask those two questions so that way you can ask for the business before you leave the house. What is your ideal radon level? So this question was put in here because we know we're going to get generally a few different answers, right? It's almost always one of three. The first one would be 0. Well, we know that we can't get radon levels down to 0. It's impossible. There's still an average of 0.4 picocuries outside with the open air. So we know that won't happen. But sometimes we'll hear radon as low as possible. That's one of my favorite things to hear for an answer right here, right? And the reason for that is because if they say, I want my radon as low as possible, that tells me that they are open to solutions that can be combined together to achieve their results, not only below 4 picocuries per liter, but to get it as low as possible to eliminate the risk or drastically reduce the risk. So very important question. Sometimes you'll hear people say, I'm selling my house and I want it below 4 so I can make the sale go through. That's okay too. So I would type that in here, below 4, right? So then you know their goals. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to change your processes on what you present, because the idea is you want to present everything to give all the options to homeowners, because that's where the integrity lies, is you're giving them the information so that way they could decide what works best for their situation. But it tells you kind of where you're at. What do you need to overcome later? Have you budgeted for this project? Honestly, this is a great question to find out, or even tell the customer your payment options, right? So by asking this question, have you budgeted for this project? And they say no. Now I can have a follow-up comment to that, be like, hey, no problem. We accept check, credit card, and if it's for you, we even have financing options, or you can use your HSA health savings account as well. I'll tell you more about it later. I just wanted you to know that that's an option. Okay. And then we're going to move on to the very last question for the customer right here. And on a radon mitigation or radon protection appointment type, we put this last because we want to part ways with the customer before our inspection. And we want to do that in a way that has the biggest impact, right? So we're going to plant a seed, basically, by saying, do you know how radon can cause cancer? This is going to do a couple things. Number one, it's going to tell you what kind of education they have about radon. And you'll find that not a lot of people know exactly what the concern is. But even if they do, it provides you a chance to agree with them and confirm and congratulate them based on knowing about it, right? So if the response is no, well, this is a great chance for you to say in a brief paragraph exactly what, causes cancer. So, I find this interesting. Most people don't know it, but it's not the gas itself that's the problem. It's basically once the radon gas comes into the home from the soil around it, it gets trapped in our home and it breaks down to solid microscopic radioactive particles called radon decay products. And that's what attaches the surface, and that's what surfaces, and that's what we breathe in. And then once it's in our bodies, those radon decay products that are solid are what can potentially damage our lung cells and mutate them to cancer cells. So it's important to know that it's not the gas that necessarily hurts us, it's the breakdown of the gas. We have ways to fix both of those. I'll show you later. And so it just provides an opportunity for you to be the professional or the expert because you're licensed and you're helping them understand a little bit more than what they knew before you walked in. If they say, yep, I know it's the radon decay products, then we're going to congratulate them. Yeah, I love that you know that. Most people don't. And so, yeah, it will fix the gas, but then the second step is to filter out the radon decay products. So I'll give you options on that later, and I'll just show you what's possible and look to you to pick what you like and what you don't. Sound good? And so that's what I would say to end it right before I do my inspection.